Well, welcome to today's webinar on the IBM's AIX Community Survey findings from 2021. Believe it or not, this is the 5th annual results from our survey in the AIX community around IBM Power. I'm Tom Huntington, Executive Vice President of Technical Solutions at Help Systems. I'll be your moderator for today's event, and we have a great cast of individuals with us today. This event is being recorded, so you can play it back at a later point in time. For those attending and those registered, you will get an email link afterwards for downloading the results from the survey and for being able to re-listen to today's recording. So let's get to our guest today. We'll start out from the left. Steve Sibley, how are you today? What do you do for IBM?
Thanks, Tom, and again, thanks for inviting me. I'm the Global Vice President for Product Management for Power Systems. I've been certainly working in power for many years. Started up in Rochester on IBM I, but I've been down here in Austin for about 20 years now, and doing the product management side. I'm excited about teaming with Help Systems on the survey and continuing to get insights into what our customers are saying on a global perspective. So really interesting results we're about to reveal, and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Steve. Let's move it over to Maria. Maria Ward, welcome, and what do you do for IBM?
Thanks, Tom. So I'm the Global Product Manager for AIX. I do have a long history of working with AIX and Power Systems back to the Power 4 timeframe when I was on the system test team. So I've seen a lot of the innovations that AIX has gone through over the years. So I'm really excited, to see where it is today. I've been in this role about a year now. So as part of that, I am now responsible for driving the overall AIX strategy. That includes, really understanding where our customers are today and what their needs are today, as well as what their needs are for the future, looking at new technologies. So that's why I'm really excited that you have this survey every year. It really gives us a lot of good insights into what the customers are looking for and what the customers need. So looking forward to the session today. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you. We look forward to all your comments, and let's move it over to Charles. Charles, how are you doing today, and what do you do for IBM?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Charles Thiel. I'm the Security and Compliance Product Manager for IBM. I'm focused on Power SC and also the difference compliant, right? Making sure that we've got all the different compliance regulations in place for our different systems. So I started off in semiconductor manufacturing and then moved to server development, and now on the security side of things. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Charles. And then over to Bob Erdman on the Help Systems staff. What's your background, Bob?
Sorry, Tom, little microphone problem there. Thank you. I oversee our offensive and defensive security solutions here at Help Systems. So everything from penetration testing and vulnerability scanning to antivirus and our threat intelligence group.
Well, thank you for joining us, Bob. And again, I'm Tom Huntington. I'm actually an IBM Power Champion. I've been a Power Champion now for 6 years, so very much so excited to be part of that program. And certainly if you're involved in the community of around Power, next fall when they open up the nominations, please nominate yourself or find somebody to nominate you, or reach out to me and I'll help you out with that process. So it's a great program. I've been very honored to be part of that. And thank you, Steve and Maria and others who have supported me in those efforts. Well, let's get going with our webinar today. Got a lot of content to get through. So we're gonna speed through some of this demographics, the data center, we've got initiatives to talk about, automation on AIX, the COVID impact, the AIX outlook for the future, and Help Systems a little bit about what we do around the AIX platform. So let's keep it rolling here, and let's talk demographics next. And I'll kick this one off. From this year's survey, we had about a little over 100 customers that filled out the survey. And as you can see from the layout here, this involvement was across the globe with a pretty equal distribution between North America, Asia, Africa, Australia, and South America, some feedback from that area too, and then all different size organizations. Again, the survey was taken in January of 2020, and it is the 5th year that we've had these results. Steve, what are your thoughts on the AIX world geography map, I guess, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, Tom, and really great results from the survey. You know, broad distribution, very much aligned with our business, right? We are very much a global business. No, we may have a few more U.S. customers from just a mixed standpoint than the results, but you know, we are very diverse in where and how big companies are that leverage AIX. So I think the results really play out to what we see as a business, right? With broad distribution across the U.S., Europe, and Asia, as well as a core business in Africa as well, particularly around kind of financial services in that area. So I think these results are really going to be a good depiction of what our general customer set looks at.
Well, thank you, Steve. And the world around AIX is pretty diverse when it comes to industries. What are your thoughts on this? Any surprises, Maria, on the industries? I see this year we got a pretty big, heavy, group in the banking area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's really no big surprise here. This really aligns with what we're seeing as well. Financial customers really need an infrastructure they can rely on to run their mission critical workloads. So I think they really rely on the reliability, the security, and the continuous availability features that we offer, such as live update, to help them eliminate any unwanted downtime. So I think that, along with our long-term roadmap for AIX and power systems, we provide the overall investment protections that these financial customers need. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, no, I think again, we have broad distribution. The survey's weighted a little bit more to financial, but as you'll see on the next chart, Tom, right? Our penetration or clients who really count on power spans every major industry, right? Banking clearly has always been a strong suit of IBM, and certainly power systems is a key part of that, as you saw also in the survey. And most of the large institutions, right, across these industries rely on power for their infrastructure, right? And it's really been interesting as we've dealt with the interesting challenges over the last 18 months with the pandemic and a real change in how people think of their infrastructure and how they deal with their infrastructure. How much more reliance customers that I talk to, I get the privilege, even though we're remote, to talk to a lot of customers on WebEx and other things, have depended on the business continuity and agility that power provides. And so, if anything, these companies are trusting power systems even more for their core business. So it is a broad distribution across the world and industries.
Thank you for those comments, Maria and Steve. And what's a webinar without a few polling questions? So I'm going to launch up our first polling question. We want to know what your experience is with AIX and how long you've been with the platform. So if you can quickly click on 1 to 2 years, 3 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, or 16 or more years. So I guess if you have no experience with it, you still can fill out that 1 to 2 area on here. So just a few minutes while we wait for this. Again, a reminder, this is being recorded. You'll get an email from Help Systems afterwards as we share both the webinar, and then we also have a PDF that's a free download that you can certainly use. We do this survey as more of a almost thank you to the community. It is something that anybody can use, and if you need copies of things that you want to present, and maybe you're a business partner and you want to use these slides for your discussions with your customers, just reach out to me and I'll make sure you get a copy of that. All right, let's close our polling question, share our results. Looks like we have, oh gosh, a lot of experienced people with us with the AIX platform, over 65% with 16 plus years, and then 3 to 5 and 11 to 15, the next range with 15%. So thank you for answering that polling question. Let's continue to move on with our content here and talk about the data center. And Steve, do these numbers make sense to you?
Yeah, so clearly, as you can see from this data, right, there is a large number of instances or partitions kind of on the right side that many customers drive, right, across their enterprise, and it grows, right. as you can see. And we've certainly, done things as we try to drive, a more cloud-like experience to make it easier to spin up VMs, deploy those, and manage those from an overall environment. So we might see some consolidation in some areas as far as customers as they, treat their system infrastructures more like a cloud and put more workload on fewer systems. But yes, we have lots of customers with well over 500 partitions running across kind of their AIX infrastructure.
And then, the other question always is, are people staying current and progressing along with the operating system? Bob, what are your thoughts on this?
Tom, I think it's really great to see this chart going up and to the right. Not only are you getting new features and functionality with moving to the latest versions of the platform, but the improvements in security and patching and everything, we really want to be very mindful of that these days. We do see that small amount of older systems. A lot of times from our experience, that's generally people have built applications that just aren't really easy to port, and it's a pretty big lift for them to finally do that. But we do see that going down, and I think we'll continue to see that trending downward here over the years. Maria, do you have any other comments on this?
No, I see 7.1 is going down and 7.2 has gone up considerably since last year, which is really great and really what we want to see. I do know we have some customers still on older levels, and as you said, Bob, it could be, some customers are on some specific homegrown applications or something, but we are working with our customers to help them move those, those partitions up. In addition, last year we did see a lot of clients impacted by COVID. They had planned upgrades, but they were not able to actually do upgrades due to change freezes and things like that. So, as I said, we've been working with our clients to help them get through this this difficult time, and we should see this going up in the 7.2 continue to go up in the future and 7.1 go down. In addition, I mentioned earlier that we do have a new release coming out, so we're really excited about that. We have some exciting features coming up, and I can talk about that now here on this slide. So we have a lot of things going on in 2021. In February, we issued a statement of direction around our intent to deliver a new AIX release this year, AIX 7.3. As you can see on the right, that will be coming in the fourth quarter. But we have a lot of key technologies that we're planning in this new release. Some of the areas that we're focusing on are continuing to enhance our continuous computing capabilities. This is something I mentioned our mission critical financial companies and other companies rely on to eliminate unwanted downtime and make sure they have seamless operations, whether they're running in or out of the data center. We're really looking at improving the scalability, enabling clients to run larger workloads, more transactions, things like that. We will continue to enhance some security features that we've been working on, and then also making sure that the 7.3 is ready for our clients to move to a hybrid cloud type infrastructure if that's what they're looking at. We will have binary compatibility, as we always do, between older releases and the new release. And this is the release. I know Tom mentioned a new chip that's coming out this year. So we did introduce Power 10 chip at Hot Chips last year. So 7.3 will be the release that is designed to take advantage of the Power 10 chip enhancements. We do have a lot of clients that are waiting for 7.3. Maybe some clients might be moving from 7.1 to 7.3 directly. But there's a lot of clients interested. In fact, in a recent seminar we did, about 80% of the clients were very interested in 7.3, and so we will be offering an open beta later this year, so clients can try it out. And I will have a slide on that later in the deck if anybody is interested.
And it's an exciting year for AIX. It's the 35th anniversary of AIX, and I know IBM has many events planned around the anniversary for AIX, and then Help Systems, we're going to be doing a follow-on webinar on June 23rd. I'm going to be joined with 5 fellow IBM Power champions from around the globe, and they'll be sharing their expertise and thoughts on the future with AIX and some of their fond memories around AIX. So join us on the 23rd. You'll get a link for that too as you get your email today from the webinar.
Yeah,
So
thanks for mentioning that, Tom.
yes.
It's right there in the middle of the screen, and I didn't mention it, but you know, we are really excited about the 35th anniversary of AIX this year and all the innovations that we've delivered over the last 35 years, and with many new things to come. So you know, speaking of that, since we did announce the 7.3 and we have the statement of direction out there, we are able to now show this officially on our roadmap. So you can see at the top here, we have AIX 7.3, which will be available later this year. And with that release, you can see it goes well beyond 2030, which is what where 7.2 ends. So we go at least through 2035 based on a typical life cycle. We will continue to offer 7.2, and 7.1 will still be supported for a while longer. So we have multiple releases, you know, that clients can choose from and move up when they're ready. We will be announcing end of marketing of 7.1 though later this year, but it'll still be supported for several more years for clients to move up. But again, you know, we do. There's a lot of value to staying current, so we're hoping that clients will move up to 7.3 and take advantage of some of this new technology as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I think the good story behind this for an AIX customer and anybody on Power is that, you know, IBM does have these long-term roadmaps, and you know, as a technology, you certainly what you invest in, you don't want going away.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve, we're back. Speaking of Power servers, here's some numbers sharing what people were on here in 2021 as they took the survey.
Yeah, so certainly we continue to see, as usual, the more and more customers move up to the latest technology, right? So you know, as we shift kind of from, at least for this brief session, from you know, the AIX side of currency to the technology side of currency, and you know, while we know we build systems with you know, the best reliability and longevity in the industry, you know, we're really encouraging people to move up, right? We've gone end of service on Power 6 and Power 7. We do you know, occasional extended service kind of contracts at times, but it's really important. And I think, you know, the industry's seeing more and more the importance of staying current. There's not only the issue that at some point hardware does fail, and it's harder and harder to get old parts, but also, you know, on the security side, there's, you know, security vulnerabilities that emerge that, you know, people weren't aware of 10 years ago when Power 7 was introduced, or I guess a little over 11 years ago now. So, you know, really important for clients to stay current, and we certainly try to provide the right incentives for them to be able to upgrade and migrate their applications with things like our binary compatibility. You know, in fact, if you go to the next chart, Tom, right, you know, our focus is really around 3 key areas, right? If you think of power system strategy in general, right, it's, you know, delivering the ability for you to modernize your infrastructure to be more cloud-like, whether that's on premises and, you know, almost a traditional model, but being more agile in how you know, launch your VMs or your LPARs, to being able to leverage our Power Virtual Server in the cloud side of things, right? To the application modernization side, and we'll talk more about that with some of the survey results as well, and how customers are looking at, you know, adding new capability to their power systems. But, you know, our long-term commitment is to build the most resilient, scalable, and secure system in the industry, which, you know, industry data points out from that perspective as well. And we do that across the application portfolio, right? From a, you know, AIX standpoint, IBM AIX, if you have that, and Linux, all running concurrently on the same hardware, just kind of as a VM kind of deployment. So you get that optimization capabilities. You're able to do modernization, you know, more aggressively in your environments as well. And, you know, as you saw kind of on the last chart, and as Maria mentioned earlier, you know, we talked about the Power 10 chip and hot chips. You know, towards the end of this year, we'll introduce our high-end Power 10 systems with the rest of the portfolio rolling out in 2022 side of things. So excited about what, you know, what's coming as well.
And you know, over the last few years, we've heard a lot about running Linux on Power, and it's really exciting to me to see these results. Steve, what do you think about Linux and Power?
Yeah, huge progress in customers who are realizing the value of running Linux on Power and beginning to adopt that mode of being able to run their Linux applications side by side next to their core applications that may be running on AIX or IBM in their environments, right? And so, seeing this where more and more customers are evaluating or deploying Linux. Certainly, a big portion of our business now is Linux on Power as well, right? And so, yes, it's exciting to see. We know a lot of the new applications are being developed in open source or developed on top of Linux, and that's why we've had this commitment that you can run, Linux seamlessly right next to your AIX partition as well.
I know we see a lot of SAP HANA running on Linux on Power.
Yeah, we are, a leader, particularly on the more scalable HANA environments, right? Where many of the companies that run the biggest SAP databases in the world run them on Power, right? We have, arguably the biggest overall share in the highly scalable HANA market, as customers rely on that resiliency and availability that we, have a commitment from. And we also have a lot of them running, side by side, as I mentioned, right? And in fact, in your journey to deploy Linux or migrate to Linux, so SAP is a good example where we have customers who may run their traditional environments, right, with Oracle or DB2 databases, running their even older SAP applications. But as they begin to evaluate HANA, they can roll those right next to that environment, share resources, right? And computing, we're the only platform that allows 16 HANA partitions in production on the same system, right? So our isolation around Power VM and leadership around virtualization make this ability to run even workloads as demanding as HANA next to AIX fairly seamless and very isolated from a production standpoint. So that's why we're seeing more and more customers run in this environment of AIX and Linux on the same frame.
One of the things that I've seen over the years is that a lot of people outside of the community don't understand that you can, on the same frame, same box, same server, you can run AIX, Linux, and IBM I. And here's a question that we had in the survey around that. What do you run on your server? And these numbers are good to see, aren't they?
Yeah, no, this is great to see that people are taking advantage of this opportunity and capability that we're providing and seeing the real value, right? Because the more you can put a workload on a system, the more efficient your infrastructure is, the more you're using the resources that you purchase. We've always, prided ourselves on systems that can run at 80% or more utilization on the high end, with flexibility and agility and the isolation and reliability that customers are dependent on. And so seeing over half of these customers running Linux and AIX side by side on the same frame is really encouraging to see them taking advantage of that value.
Yeah, and I think it really does reduce your total cost of ownership because you have less headcount managing the server, less updates that you're doing in a more scalable environment. So let's move on to IT initiatives because this is a really important part around the AIX community. And we'll turn it over to Bob to talk about the top IT concerns for your AIX environment, which, to me, the interesting thing is there's a lot of very consistent numbers across the board from 44% to 30%. Bob, what do you think?
Thanks, Tom. Yes, this does look very similar to a lot of just what are the standard IT concerns these days. One of the things that really jumps out is that huge lift in the automation and workload automation checkbox. And I think some of that's probably related to the things that are going on in the world, around COVID. Some of us have had to work with smaller staffs than we did in the past. It's really hard to get hands in front of keyboards in many places inside of the world, and people are looking to see automation and automation tools. And we're hearing a lot of those same things here at Help Systems with the growth of those automation and RPA types of products. Cybersecurity is staying strong. That's great to see. We always want people to be mindful of what's going on around their environments. We're seeing that large rise in attacks these days. And that data growth and capacity management, I mean, those two kind of go together, and we see those numbers being very similar. So understanding, where I sit today and what do I need to have 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 2 years from now to keep my operations working in the way that they need to be. We'll definitely touch on more of these topics a little more in depth as we go farther down in the presentation.
Yeah, let's turn it over to Charles, who's been quite quiet here, but I know cybersecurity is one of his favorite topics. Charles, what do you think about cybersecurity around AIX servers?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Tom. Looking at cybersecurity and, in this chart here and the data here, solutions in place, we see similar results to last year. It's no surprise that most companies have a network firewall in place. That's the second bar from the left. However, it is interesting to see no plans to implement for antivirus. A fair amount of customers whom I work with and whom I've spoken with are really focused on wanting blacklisting or the traditional antivirus protection. And then the other thing that stands out to me, the observation that I see from this data, is the low focus or concern on encryption for data at rest.
Yeah, thank you. And then Bob, any thoughts? I know you do quite a bit with AV around Unix and Linux.
We do, Tom. We're seeing actually a good pickup in the people that are understanding, AIX, while it is less susceptible, definitely than maybe your Windows PC. No systems are immune to malware these days. Malware exists in all shapes, forms, and factors, and many times the same families port from Unix to Windows, just depending on what endpoint they see once they penetrate an environment. So, we definitely encourage people to be mindful of that. It's not just your AIX system itself sitting in isolation. Many times these days now, you're connected to many different types of things around your environment. Most specifically, your Windows users that are using the file systems and processes on that AIX machine, so they can be an infection vector getting back to you, or something may not execute on your AIX boxes, but it may live there to be affecting the rest of your network as it gets pushed out by people connecting in and out of those machines. So definitely cybersecurity is a big area of focus that we like people to be paying attention to.
Yeah, and Charles, back to you to talk about some of the security solutions that people have in place and your thoughts on these results.
Yeah, and another way to slice the data, this is a really good way to look at it, a year-to-year compare on security solutions. And again, this data is consistent with what we saw last year. I think the key categories that stand out to me are the increased focus on network firewall compliance, multi-factor authentication, file integrity monitoring, which all make sense with the increasing amount and publicity around cyber attacks and increased regulations. And along those lines of increased regulations, I don't know if you all have heard, but President Biden did sign an executive order related to cybersecurity a couple of weeks ago on May 12th, mandating multi-factor authentication. So we definitely see, increased regulations. And along those lines, that kind of plays into our offering of PowerSC and especially PowerSC MFA for AIX to help manage multi-factor authentication on the AIX platform.
And Bob, I know we have some AV offerings too around AIX. What are those things?
We do. We actually have a real-time AV offering for the AIX platform, so we love to see people using that. I think part of the focus when we look at these network firewalls, MFA, some of those things also is related to so many people having to go remote. Now that we are all connecting across the network into our critical systems, those applications become much more important. Many times we've had to expose services to the outside that we didn't do in the past because people were within our walls and now they're sitting at home. So it all gets really important as we move along.
Then we asked the community, what are your greatest cybersecurity challenges? And Bob, back to you on your thoughts on this.
Lack of knowledge and skills continues to be a high runner in every survey that we see. There is a big shortage in qualified cybersecurity professionals. We know there's a bit of a shortage in AIX, UNIX type professionals as well. That's not a primary operating system when guys are coming out of college that they're getting trained in. So, a lot of times it relies on us out in the world to help skill up our new employees as we be able to bring them along. Government regulations, as we just talked about, continue to get to be higher and higher as a challenge for us. Many times we're working on multiple regulation sets. as well. And as we evolve these technologies to be more IoT, more mobile, more cloud enabled, that's going to change the kind of threats that we have to deal with. We're exposing our systems to a wider and wider area of purview where now we have to control those things that are touching them, and it causes us to have a lot more that we have to be mindful of.
Thank you. Charles, your thought on the challenges around cybersecurity?
Yeah, similar to, what Bob said, and kind of stands out to me as well, is, the lack of knowledge and skills, and then couple that with the constantly changing threats. As far as, how we think of power systems, caused us to build security in, the lack of, deep technical knowledge, which is fine. We kind of take it upon ourselves to build security into the power systems, and then offer software, again, back to Power SC to, make security easy to use, easy to manage security, compliance, patch management of the system. And, kind of looking at these different categories, along the lines of regulation, complexity, et cetera, that really kind of plays well with, how we think of security on our power systems and the software that we use to manage it.
Yeah, and we know the regulations aren't going away, are they, Charles? So they continue to get more, I guess, more stringent, right, for the market.
Yes, yeah, and the data, here is consistent with the feedback that I've heard, directly from customers. GDPR continues to be a focus, along with PCI, HIPAA, DoD, STIG, NERC in the energy industry. And one, quite frankly, that I don't see here is CIS, Center for Internet Security. This security profile is becoming more well known, and perhaps it's captured in the other category here. But as far as security software on AIX related to compliance, again, Power SC fits nicely in here in managing all of these different compliance regulations, compliance profiles that are continually popping up and continually adding to the regulations.
Bob, I know you talk a lot about regulations. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do, Tom. I think another one that we're not really seeing, and it might be in the other category as well, is CMMC, which is coming on fast. I love to see DoD STIGs. Those are near and dear to my heart. The one that's none is a little bit surprising. Almost everybody has something. And maybe there's things going on that people aren't aware of at more of a corporate level. But we do work with people all the time that are under multiple regulations, everything from being an approved scanning vendor from PCI to having that global footprint with the GDPR. We see that's a huge rise. Part of that is where we're getting our respondents from, but I think also it's become much more visible to corporations over here in the States that if we're doing business over the water, we're all also under those GDPR regulations for our clientele that live in those countries.
So we know people are addressing cybersecurity, and one of the questions we had was how many IT staff members they had in this area. Charles, any thoughts on these results?
Yeah, it's good to see that almost 25% of companies have more than 10 staff members focused on cybersecurity, and then almost half of the population with more than 6. On the other side of the equation, with more than half of the companies with less than 5, this is definitely a place, for security automation. Again, can't help but mention Power SC, but to help automate and simplify the management of IT security, and then along the lines, Help Systems also has tools available to improve ease of use. So as we see, companies kind of in between either, less than 6, more than 6, there's a place for tools to help manage IT security.
Very good. All right. Let's move our agenda. We've talked about automation in regards to cybersecurity, but I think, when we think about automation and the impacts of COVID, we have to think about that people were working from home, and then all of a sudden they go, oh no, who's going to run that when that was done in the data center or done by an end user? And so automation, I think this year popped up, from 21% last year to 38% as an attention area. And one of the other things we did with the survey is added in questions related to enterprise scheduling, because we often see with AIX and Power Server is the need to, you're running a bigger, more scalable environment, and with that comes more, I'd say, batch processes and things that are routine or mundane that you have to do. And certainly, enterprise scheduling and that technology has been around for years with Tivoli and Control M and the CA AutoSys offerings, and from Help Systems, we have JAMS, which is a enterprise scheduling solution for running for AIX workloads and Windows and Linux and all those things together. And then we also have heard a lot about robotic process automation too in the industry. So we also play in that and helping customers with a technology called Automate for RPA. So those are all things that come to mind, business users and IT processes that we need to run unattended. I've been helping customers in the automation space for my entire career, which was 30 years at Help Systems, and quite honestly, I'm always surprised it's 2021 and we have people still doing things manually. Maria, what are your thoughts on automation?
Yeah, that is not good to be still doing things manually, but yeah, one of the area of automation is something that we've been focusing on for quite a while, particularly in helping clients, with system management and management of their AIX environment. So we've been focusing on Ansible. We've got quite a few modules now. I think it's up to about 40 or more official in the Ansible Galaxy and Automation Hub. The majority of these are driven by customer engagement, customer interaction that we've had over the past year. So we're focusing a lot on patching, version updates, HMC management, things like that. And clients now are also looking at more, wanting to do more HMC and VIOS management as well through Ansible. So these are some of the things we're focusing on this year in general, just to kind of address that skills gap that you mentioned, and being able to do these common tasks across a lot of systems without having to do it manually.
Steve, any comments on the Ansible Red Hat offering?
Yeah, so Tom, as you pointed out, right, automation is growing, and as we saw in the survey data, right, as a top priority for customers, right, and a broad array of solutions are required, right, depending on what you're automating, how you're automating. We have over the last few years done a lot to integrate into kind of provisioning, orchestration, and even operational type solutions like IBM's Cloud Pak for multi-cloud management, VMware's vRealize, where Power is just treated as another platform, right? So both on their operations platform as well as their orchestration platform for VMware vRealize. But Ansible has been a key new initiative with us. As we have acquired Red Hat and have teamed with them, seeing the growth and interest around Ansible is just actually fairly remarkable, right? We have about 70% of our top AIX customers either already using or looking at deploying Ansible as part of their automation solution for either provisioning, security automation, and patch management is a key one, as Maria just mentioned, right? Or other deployment operations. And we are delivering Ansible collections or modules and playbooks to automate things into what's called Ansible Galaxy or Red Hat's Ansible automation platform. So if you're not familiar with Ansible, it's an open source project, so you can go use these collections, for free out of what's called Ansible Galaxy as the repository, or you can get enterprise class support from Red Hat for these modules through the Ansible automation platform. We started this in second quarter last year, so just over a year ago, or actually, right at a year ago, we delivered our first collections in June, right? We have over 20,000 downloads from customers who are leveraging our AIX, HMC, IBM AIX collections that are out there. So already seeing a lot of interest in, how do you simplify those redundant tasks, right? That quite frankly are, both time consuming from an administration standpoint, and can result in errors, because anything you do manually has that danger of errors. And so as more and more customers automate things, particularly on the security side, one of the biggest vulnerabilities on security isn't new vulnerabilities that emerge that aren't known and somebody went and found. It's actually enterprises who haven't deployed all of their security capabilities and features to the latest, releases of things that get penetrated for known vulnerabilities, right? And so automating your security not only is a cost savings from an administration standpoint, it's also obviously important for risk management.
Thank you, Steve. Let's move on and talk about, obviously can't hide from the big impact of COVID and talk about some of the questions that we had related to the COVID era here. What areas did you struggle with during COVID-19? Steve, will continue with you to talk about this.
Yeah, so really, emphasized more the remote management. How do you bring in new servers? And what we saw is more and more interest to what was already a trend, which is interest in, how do I leverage capability in the cloud, right? Where I don't have to go in. And that cloud could be obviously our Power Virtual Server connected to the IBM cloud, or it could be a cloud-like environment on premises, right? Where I can go do everything remotely, spin up VMs easily, update my servers without having to go, touch a keyboard inside the data center side of things. So, this is certainly what we saw from customers, right? Of, am I secure, right? Do I have things like multi-factor authentication, as Charles talked about? So I'm sure that the people that are, dialing in remotely have appropriate access to the appropriate systems, right? As well. So those concerns, I think, are right along the lines of what we're hearing.
Yeah, and Steve, I know security again is really near and dear to you on the AIX platform, and work from home and technologies that were used to help people out. You want to comment on some of this?
Yeah, so certainly things like VPN access, remote automated monitoring of their systems were key, right? We have lots of solutions to monitor the health of your total AIX landscape. Things like our cloud management console, which gives a health check kind of view of your environments, as well as can be used for our Power Private Cloud shared utility compute model that we have, right, as well. But again, the focus on automation, the focus on how do I improve my security have got to be the two fundamental pieces that we continue to hear over the last 18 months of. I need to be able to do things, work from anywhere. I need to ensure that it's secure, and certainly the AIX reputation for security helps reinforce that view. But the key tools that help systems as well as IBM provide are important as well.
Awesome. And Steve, if you want to talk a little bit about lab services and what they do for customers on AIX.
Yeah, one of the key things here, right, as you think about how do you automate, what we saw, so we moved all of our lab services to remote kind of engagements, right, for at least the first 6 months of the pandemic. And so being able to help you as customers with health checks across your infrastructure was one of the most popular offerings we had. How do we help automate these operations that we've been talking about, either with Ansible, Power SC for security, and I'm sure help systems can remotely help you as well. So even though access to environments and getting together physically has been impacted, our capabilities to help you do that automation from even a remote methodology standpoint is still there. So I encourage you, as you think of these opportunities to drive automation, to engage either help systems or us.
Thank you, Steve. And then let's take a look at the AIX 2021 outlook and beyond. And I guess back to you, Steve. You're popular on this webinar, I know, with many years around the platform. So what do you think about core business that runs on AIX?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Clearly in big companies where AIX is there, we may not be the biggest overall infrastructure. They may have more Intel servers. But one of the things we do find is that most of the core business applications are running on AIX in those environments, right? So, while we may only have, a few hundred partitions in an enterprise, those are what those companies classify as tier 1 or business critical applications. And that's, evident in this data, right? Where, nearly, 40% of them have more than half of their core business applications running on AIX, right? So while AIX and Power Systems isn't the biggest, overall number of systems shipped in the industry, it is running most of the core business applications and data in the industry, as this data shows.
Yeah, when we talk about core applications, it's always interesting to see what people are using on the platform. And Maria, I know you're very concerned about the applications and making sure that application providers support the platform. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this is a great view of what our customers are running today. It is heavy on the database side, which makes a lot of sense due to the mission critical nature of the workloads that are running and the core strengths that AIX provides to the customers that are running those like large transactional databases. I see a lot of ISV names there that we're definitely very familiar with. We have an ISV team that works directly with all of the vendors and software vendors to help bring their capabilities to AIX to give our customers choices on the applications that they run. There's quite a bit of homegrown applications I see there as well, which is really good. And that actually really aligns with our strategy of enabling customers to run their core business workloads on AIX and then extend or enhance those workloads with other applications, you know, either homegrown or other ISV applications to extend their the technology capabilities that they have and you know, really get that return on investment on their system. So this is you know, this is good to see. Not really a big surprise.
Yeah, and then of course, the return on investment and the satisfaction level of these customers that are using AIX, and this number being at 90% this year. Steve, that's gotta be a pleasant number for you there at IBM.
Yeah, no, and this is reflected in my individual discussions with many customers as well, right? As they have, you know, it's all companies have kind of, you know, stepped back and really focused on what is core to their business and how do I respond to that core part of my business to be successful in this environment of you know, the COVID pandemic side of things. The realization of the value they're getting from their AIX servers has grown, right? We have, you know, pharmaceutical companies who saw huge increases in demand from, you know, the number of prescriptions to the supply chain issues and how do you manage across those environments, or you know shipping companies, you know, that saw record numbers of packages that they had to manage through their power system environments as well. And so I'm not at all surprised that there's more recognition. I think the other key piece is just the recognition that, you know, customers who are on power see the value, right? 83% think they get, you know, last year thought they got better ROI, and this year that number even increased, right? So not surprising at all. And we're also driving new capabilities, right? So if you haven't, you know, kept up with our focus over the last couple of years, certainly you can continue to buy power systems the way you traditionally have. But we've really, as I mentioned earlier in our strategy, focused on this consumption kind of model, both on-prem as a Power Private Cloud, as well as our Power Virtual Server with the IBM Cloud, where you can purchase AIX VM as a service kind of capability, or Linux VM as a service on Power, or even IBM I VM as a service on Power, so that you could, you know, really optimize that return in new ways, right? The Power Private Cloud provides both cost optimization, really treating your entire infrastructure, you know, as this chart points out, right, as a shared utility model, right? So we monitor your entire infrastructure. We only bill you for what you use, essentially, in this environment, so you can really optimize your cost. We're seeing on average about 20 to 30% cost savings from customers who adopt this model. But then it also gives them this flexibility, right? This agility to, you know, spike up on batch workloads or new demand on peak workloads that are there. And this cloud management console, as I mentioned earlier, not only monitors the capacity management, it also provides some health management as well. So you can monitor currency for, you know, security patches, latest additions, dependencies across, you know, your firmware level, your OS level, and your HMC side of things. So a lot of flexibility to move into this cloud-like environment to be more automated in how you operate, as well as how you manage your environment.
Thank you, Steve. And then on to our last polling question of the day. You know, what AIX offerings can we help you with at Help Systems and really IBM? Enterprise scheduling, monitoring, capacity planning. Maybe you want a help systems technology update, or maybe you want an IBM technology update. I know Steve mentioned a couple times he meets with customers all the time. They love to be engaged with what customers are thinking about, and or cybersecurity solutions overview. You know, at Help Systems, we do a lot of those with customers, just walking them through, talking about, you know, what are their concerns, what are their needs, and pointing out things that we can help them with, or other things in the industry that they can use to help them with their cybersecurity challenges. Steve, I'm put you on the spot here, but I'm assuming you have calls all the time with customers, right?
Absolutely. I love, I mean, number one is I love helping customers modernize and think through how they can get more value out of their IT. That's what we're really about. Talk to numerous customers, weekly, monthly, in either a briefing format or just a discussion format of what do they need to be thinking about and going forward. So love to engage and see how we can work together.
Thank you for commenting on that, Steve. And let's move on here. We got a few more things to cover. And over to Maria to talk about some artifacts around AIX.
Yeah, I just wanted to include this here. If you're interested in learning more about any of the things that we talked about, you can look at the vendor spotlight paper that we put out last year on modernizing the operating system for a hybrid multi-cloud type environment. The strategy paper is going through a rewrite right now to really reflect our latest initiatives, but it is up to date now with the current roadmap. And then we have a new field guide to application modernization. That's really a great resource for customers that are looking at doing some modernization to extend their workloads. As in the area of training and certification, we are bringing back the certification program. It should be ready for the initial one for AIX Foundation should be ready online in mid-June, and there's a link there to register. We also have a lot of training courses that are available to help prepare for that for anyone that's interested. So this is going to be a new program similar to what we had several years ago, which we kind of went away from for a little while, and now we're bringing that back for AIX and other AIX software products as well.
Awesome.
And yep.
Is there a price associated with those, Maria?
Yeah, well, the course, once you go to register, you will pay. I don't think it's that much. I think for the certification exam, it's depending on your geo, it's probably $200 or less for the exam. Oh. Yeah, nice. So that is there's a cost to take the exam.
It's priced right. Okay.
Yeah.
What's this AIX open beta program? What are you doing here?
So I mentioned we have a new AIX 7.3 release coming out this year. So what we're going to do is about 8 to 10 weeks before the GA, which is in December, we're going to make a build available that you can run on your power systems. You can download it and run it and try it out, try out all the new features that we have. The images will be able to be installed on your Power 8 or later systems. And in addition, we're making an OVA image available in Power Virtual Server. So that's a new feature that we added last year. And you can take that image and import it over to Power VS and actually try it out there as well. So we're working on the details of that. This is not an officially supported beta, but it'll be kind of open to anybody. So we're looking for, the more the better here. And if you're interested, please send me an email and I will get more information to you.
Thank you, Maria. And then kind of to summarize the numbers here today around the survey before I talk a little bit about help systems, we had over 100 IT professionals, and pretty much guarantee you they were different people than we had in the 2020 results, because we do get at different parts of the world, different parts of the market. 90% of them were very much happy and considering AIX to be a great return on their investment compared to other platforms that they use. 73% run more than 25% of their core business on AIX, making it a very sticky platform in the data center, but yet a very important platform. And then 56% are continuing to increase their AIX footprint in adding more workload to the server. And really that to me is one of the important things here with this platform is its scalability and the ability to add more to it. 77% are already on Power 9, and I'm sure many who took the survey are also looking forward to Power 10 when it comes out. And then 44% are modernizing, 43% are looking at high availability, 52% are running a combination of AIX, IBM AIX, and Linux on Power, which is exciting to think that not too long ago, IBM started that whole initiative, really a couple decades ago, but it's good to see this today. And then, of course, 46% are when you combine cybersecurity and compliance and regulations, have that on their mind. So again, we thank you for joining us. Just a little infomercial before we get to a few questions and answers from Help Systems. Who are we? We're a Minnesota-based company with over 1,500 employees worldwide, so a very big global presence these days, focusing on security, cybersecurity and data security and identity, access management, infrastructure protection, and then of course automation, which is really more my background, enterprise scheduling, workload automation, robotic process automation, VM capacity planning, and let's just take a look at the things that we do today specifically for the AIX operating system. Bob talked about antivirus, but we can help you if you're storing documents out there. We can help you identify, classify, discover documents that you have at rest, like PDFs, et cetera. We do data security for documents, manage file transfer, helping with secure file transfer is a big part of the world around cybersecurity, making sure that things are encrypted and secure. And then to go along with compliance, can I audit it? And then, of course, you might be concerned about your infrastructure around AIX and pen testing services, pen testing software. We also do privileged access management for those who use SU and sudo and they're concerned about tracking who's doing that. We have the ability to do that for you. Security policy enforcement, we have SIM enterprise integration capabilities, and we also have user account access provisioning, helping with onboarding new people, all in cybersecurity. And then we turn our attention to automation. We help people with advanced document capture, capacity planning for your power server. Matter of fact, we can help you if you're looking at sizing your capacity, going to the cloud, you're looking to combine AIX, IBM I, and Power on one frame. What does that look like from providing all your VMs? We also help people with enterprise scheduling, network monitoring, the OS server monitoring, for example. We can create templates across each of the instances to monitor those systems, and then VM capacity planning. So a lot going on here at Help Systems in regards to these technologies. And Jen, we just have a few moments. Well, here's the bigger, broader set of things that we do at Help Systems, even away from the IBM I, AIX, Linux platforms. So Steve, we have a couple questions out here. What can you say about IBM Power VM capabilities related to memory virtualization, active memory sharing, active memory deduplication, and active memory sharing when all used together? Any comments? It's a pretty, I guess, technical question around the hardware capabilities.
Yeah, pretty broad and maybe even workload specific type of underlying question on there. Clearly, our virtualization has deployed significant capability from active memory expansion, right, which enables you to kind of get the virtual expansion of memory, particularly with use cases where you're running partitions that follow the sun, so to speak, right, across different geographies or different time zones, right? So applications that run at night versus the day, active memory expansion is good. Virtual memory has been great, particularly in a world of SAP HANA with very large memory instances where you can get perpetual kind of virtual memory that's enabled from a Power VM standpoint. The underlying question of how all these things work together really gets into a little bit around understanding the workload distribution and models about when capacity is used from those kind of environments. So I'd encourage a technical engagement session around this, and we'd be happy to facilitate that with either some of our lab services team or developers to get into more detail. But clearly our advantages around Power VM for isolated VMs, right, which is leadership in the industry as recognized by Oracle and SAP to performance are key. So I'm glad that here somebody's really taking advantage of those features.
Yeah, great question on the capabilities of the hardware. Well, we have run out of time. I want to thank everybody for joining us on the AIX community survey results from January of 2021. And this has been recorded. You will get copies of the handouts in PDF format. If you do want actual PowerPoint slides, just reach out to me, Tom.Huntington@helpsystems.com. You can find me on LinkedIn if you can't remember my email. And I want to thank our presenters today, Steve, Maria, Charles, Bob. Thank you for joining me today on presenting this information. Thank you so much. I guess that's a sign it's the top of the hour.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.